militia. It is my hope that if anyone can correct me or show where my errors were made, I would appreciate it very much. The committee is also planning, I think this coming week, to put a small booklet together or some type of trifold or whatever we can fit on the group's official position on the militia. And whoever would like to come, your input would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that this probably opens up a good forum for a pretty good and healthy debate here. Everything, obviously, that you said, Neil, is well researched, but in no disrespect intended, obviously, you and I are good friends and everything, but that's great as a history lesson, but it does not in any way, shape, or form reflect the reality of today. The old saying is, it takes two to tango, and it's obvious that the state governments and the federal government have not lived up to their obligations to provide for the organizing, the maintaining of the militia. I can assure you that King George, during the Revolutionary War, he was not a big fan of the militias in the colonies either. And I'm quite certain, as we know from Concord and Lexington, that those citizens owning firearms and assembling and everything was in violation of a direct edict from the monarch. So where we stand today is in a situation where if we can't even get this government to listen to us when the people are screaming at the top of their lungs, take your health care and shove it, how in the heck are we going to expect them to be willing to empower the citizenry to balance out the tyranny of the federal government? They have an incentive to not organize the militia, and militia, actually the definition of militia, as we all know, is comprised of all of the able-bodied citizens of a nation or of a community or of a state or whatever. That is not the National Guard. That is not a standing army, which obviously our founding fathers opposed as well. So we're in a unique situation today where we as citizens, yes, if we were to assemble as a militia, we'd be in violation of what our founding fathers intended. But I don't think there's any question in this room at all that that this federal government today has violated virtually every tenet of our foundations. And so, going back to the point again, it takes two to tango. Sure, if we had a federal government that respected the will of the people, then they would be doing their job and providing for maintaining, organizing, and equipping the militia, which means basically providing the funds for it. But they're not doing that. The state government is not doing that. And indeed, not only they're not doing that, but they're violating the will of the people, carte blanche, across the board. And so we're in a situation now where even though historically what you said is correct, it does not apply to where we are today, in my opinion. So.
Well, I'd love to answer that, or to offer some, I guess some of my opinion in rebuttal to that. If we are in a unique position, and I agree with that statement, but if our government does not follow the law that has been put in place, the Constitution, so to make them follow the law, we disobey it as well.
Not correct.
That doesn't
we're
make
talking
sense.
about we're talking about natural law and moral law here. We're talking about the natural law. The natural law is being that a group of citizens must feel obligated and must feel compelled to defend themselves, to defend their community, to defend their way of life,
and we have a right to do that.
We do have a right, and we should feel compelled. And even when our federal government does not provide that vital role of providing funds and providing leadership and organizing and everything, that does not say that we are no longer obligated, and also that we are in violation if we either demand representative government or if we take the necessary steps to effect that change.
Well, I think first of all, as Mr. Altizer pointed out earlier, according to our own Constitution, our Bill of Rights, we have, and being that we are still a free society, do have a few options of how to deal with this. Our first option is the politicians we don't like, get rid of them. And if they're replaced with someone who follows the same suit, get rid of them too. Don't keep these guys around forever. Two, we have a legal obligation to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That is what our founding fathers told us, that they didn't, and I'm not saying that that's what you're suggesting, but they don't say if a particular member of the government does something you don't like, you have a right to go after them. You do have a right to go after them, but only according to the prescription that they laid out for us. And that's the legal or the lawful method.
Well, I would say that the prescription that they laid out for us is a perfect example, is exactly what drove our founding fathers to rebel against a tyrannical government that forced taxation upon them without representation. And by those standards, we're way beyond where they ever were. Way beyond. And I think that it's something that we never need to be unwilling to discuss, based on the fact that we live in the real world. We don't live in a hypothetical world where, we watch our government's a reality TV show. We're living in the real world, and we always have to be prepared to do what is necessary. But there's the idea that we read about the revolution of 1776 in the books, but it was done for very specific reasons, and they're very similar in plot to exactly where we are today.
I can probably guarantee one thing. I don't know this to be a fact, but if we ever have a revolution of 2010 or 2011 or 12, our Constitution will cease to exist.
Again, just as a debating point, again, and I already warned Phil about this. When you open up this can of worms, that's a healthy one. We can argue the point. Our Constitution doesn't exist now. It really doesn't. It looks great on the wall. It looks great if you put it, in a frame and you put it up on the wall. But when have any of our leaders followed the Constitution? When have they cited our Constitution passing the unconstitutional, immoral, and illegal legislation that they've been passing for the last 20 years?
But
Not
until now, when have the people whose moral and lawful responsibility it is got up off of their sofas and demanded that they be represented until now? It hasn't happened.
It has happened. I disagree with you. It happened on September 11th, and I was there in Washington, D.C. The media reported that there was about 70,000 people there.
September 12th?
So on September 12th, I'm sorry. Excuse me. There was over 2 million people there. I was there. I was standing right on the Capitol steps. That's
what I'm talking about until this day, right now. I'm not talking about until today.
And I'm saying is that at any one time, the leaders of that group who were standing right in the Capitol could have just stood up and said, "Look, we're going to the White House, or we're going to go all the way up to the top." And there's nobody there that could have stopped us. Nobody.
I would challenge the question: when in the past 100 years has, until this particular point that you're speaking about, September 12th, when in the past 75 or 100 years has that many conservative or constitutional-minded Americans ever assembled together in one place for any reason?
I don't even think there was that many for the inoculation in January.
It hasn't happened, and that's a part of the problem. The people that are in control of this government now are getting exactly what they want. They've been doing this systematically for years.
And there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people there. There was a lot of people there that are at home that couldn't come for one reason or another. But their hearts were with us.
Well,
and it was just an unbelievable feeling of patriotism.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
No, I know that.
All I'm saying is that's what it's going to take.
I'm on your side. So.
We have the means, the lawful means in place. We have.
Right.
If we didn't have a Constitution and Bill of Rights, they may not be followed in large part by our politician, but we wouldn't even have the right to be here now. And we do. We do. There's no one that tells us we can't all come here.